important rules of building your wealth. There is no easy money, my parents would tell me again and again. If it were so easy, everyone would be doing it. In this video, I'll cover a framework for saving and investing your money so you hopefully don't miss out on these opportunities to build your wealth. Rule 1. Save up enough money to cover 3 to 6 months of living expenses. Rule 1 is put in place to ensure that you are protected in case of an emergency like losing your job. Use this emergency fund to keep yourself afloat while you search for your next source of income so that you can avoid taking desperate measures like selling one of your belongings or resorting to high-interest debt, e.g. credit card debt, cash advances, payday loans, etc. Along the same vein, consider dipping into this emergency fund to cover any unexpected expenses, like an auto repair. As soon as you can, replenish this fund from your next main source of income, so you can live comfortably, knowing you have a personal safety buffer. Rule 2. If your employer offers 401k contribution matches, contribute enough of your pay to earn the full match. A 401k contribution match is free money, so you won't want to leave that on the table. Securing the full match should be prioritized over any other investments. Retirement accounts are essential to long-term savings, so I'm sure to go into deeper details separately. Just know that 401k matching is a killer win-win incentive. Rule 3. Open a brokerage account for your long-term investments. Rule 3 is certainly the most intimidating, so I think this is where a lot of people fall short when managing their personal finances. There's a common myth that suggests investing is only for the rich, but if that were the case, folks like Warren Buffett and Ray Dalio would not have the stories that they have shared about buying stocks at a very young age, especially with both of them having come from modest backgrounds. Let me assure you that while investing may seem like a wide and nebulous world, there are a few steps you can take to get you everything you'll need out of investing. Because investing is daunting, I want to make sure we take our time here. Small, but highly effective steps towards investing. 1. Remember that emotions are your enemy when it comes to investing. If you don't have a handle on your emotions while investing, I can't recommend that you invest. The stock market does not manifest as a nice straight line on a chart that goes up and to the right, at least not in the short term. In the long run, however, when you smooth out the peaks and troughs, we know that's the direction the market has always taken, and we shouldn't expect that to change today, tomorrow, or anytime soon. Internalizing this first step is critical, because your emotions uninhibited will lead you to buy when the market is high for fear of missing out, and they will force you to sell when the market is low, when you can't stand to watch the numbers drop. 2. Open a brokerage account. A brokerage account is an account you'll open with an investment firm, like Charles Schwab, Robinhood, E-Trade, Merrill Edge, so that you may deposit money and purchase stocks and bonds or invest in managed funds. A lot of smart people will tell you that you should first deposit into a Roth IRA, which you can open alongside your brokerage account at any of the brokerages I mentioned. While I completely agree, I also realize that the idea of locking up your money until you're 59 and a half is so unattractive, many people are outright deterred from investing at all. If you fall into that camp, I don't blame you. Therefore, don't let that thought keep you from getting exposed to investing. Opening a retirement account can come shortly after. 3. Regularly deposit money and buy shares of VU. What is VU? The short of it, buying shares of VU is a good way to invest in one of the most reliable long-term investments in history, the American economy. By buying VU shares, you are automatically diversifying your investment across the 500 largest U.S. companies, aka the S&P 500. Rather than putting all your eggs into any one company, you'll earn stake in Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Berkshire Hathaway, J.P. Morgan Chase & Co., and literally hundreds of others. Towards making regular investments, you can choose to save up a set budget each quarter, and deposit it into your brokerage account to purchase as many shares as that set budget can afford, otherwise known as dollar cost averaging. Dollar cost averaging protects you from worst-case scenarios like putting all your money into the stock market just to see it crash in the next week and take a few years to recover. If instead, you split up that lump sum into equal parts, spread out over a number of months, you'll mute the risk and pain of things going south in the short term. If that doesn't seem immediately intuitive, you're not alone. Feel free to ask questions or read a little more about dollar cost averaging. As far as the steps of Rule 3 go, you don't necessarily need to understand any finer-grained details to reap the benefits, but I'll cover some of the technicals for those who are curious. VU is one example of an ETF or exchange-traded fund, which is just a technical term for a fund that's traded like a stock. ETFs are managed by professionals, but VU simply tracks the S&P 500, making it an index fund. Therefore, management is passive, with the fees being near zero. Those fees are automatically shaved off of the total fund, and they are a minuscule price to pay for robust diversification. By following Rule 3, you are taking advantage of what is known as compounding return. More concretely, your investment into the S&P 500 will, on average, double in 10 years. That may not sound so impressive, but that's not the end of it. The reason compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world is that your investment will quadruple after 20 years, eighttuple after 30 years, and so on. Take this example. Let's say by the age of 30, one person saved $1,000, one person saved $10,000, and one person saved $100,000. By the time they reach 60, their initial holdings will have grown by $7,000, $70,000, and $700,000 respectively. This video spells out where you should save money, but I hope this example describes the importance of when you should save money too. If you've ever heard someone tell you, "Don't worry about your investment, you're still young," you can thank compounding returns for that. Rule 4, whatever money you'll need in the next few years should be deposited into a high-yield savings account. Rule 4 applies to the money you've been saving, maybe for things like a nice vacation, a down payment for property, a wedding, etc., that you might have otherwise invested into the stock market if you followed Rule 3. I set out Rule 4 as a control to help you sleep better at night, as investors will say. We must face it, although the stock market has never reached a peak it didn't eventually surmount, that's not to say it hasn't seen its fair share of dips and crashes. We can be confident that the market will continue to recover from any such crash, but say you invested at the peak, and the next week, the market fell substantially. Ideally, you can ride it out until it recovers and catches up. Some people will let greed get the better of them, hoping to make an extra 10% on that money. Without warning, the market could crash 30% or even 50%, so if their investment included money that they needed in the short term, they may have been forced to sell at a lower price than they bought, just to limit their losses. That's when the stock market bites. Therefore, when I say the next few years, that could mean up to 5 to 7 years if you're conservative. Given that this money won't be locked up in investments, you'll want to make sure you're getting the best interest rate on your deposit. High-yield savings accounts are savings accounts that offer much higher interest rates than the average savings account. Reputable banks and financial institutions, like American Express and Capital One, offer savings accounts that are over 15x the national average. For whatever reason, these accounts seem to be undermarketed. Nonetheless, I highly recommend taking advantage of them. Some folks might criticize that the interest rates aren't guaranteed over time, but high-yield savings accounts are one of the easiest savings options for accessibility and safekeeping, so I must say that I am a fan. A bonus note about debts: as I suggested earlier, avoid high-interest debt at all costs. High-interest debt is oftentimes a very slippery slope. If you read the note in Rule 3 about compounding returns, realize that high-interest debt takes you the opposite direction. Debt begets more debt, so it's not uncommon that high-interest debt leads to interest payments summing up to be greater than the original amount borrowed. Now, for most of us, a debt-free life is a pipe dream. For student loans, auto loans, home loans, you'll want to get as low of an interest rate as possible, which is a no-brainer. Where the story gets more complicated is when you have to decide where to put your next earned dollar, either towards paying down debt or towards an investment. If you have a fairly low interest rate on your loan, let's say close to or less 4%, the money you might use to pay down your balance might actually be best invested in the S&P 500, where you'll get back close to 8% on average. A higher interest rate warrants greater prudence, because, short of telling the future, there's not a solid right answer.